We have to talk about it, guys. So Katherine Arden is up for the John W. Campbell Award. That's probably where you might have heard her name if you haven't yet read her books. If you have not yet read her books, that is the first thing. I'm giving you homework. Stop watching this video. You have my permission. Go download an audiobook, get the e-version, pull it off your shelves if it's been on your shelves, and sit down and read this. It starts with The Bear and the Nightingale, continues with The Girl in the Tower, and completes with The Winter of the Witch. This is a beautiful Russian folklore retelling, kind of in the setting of how, if those folklore were real, how would they have interacted with some certain historical moments. The story's main character, Vasya, is a free spirit, a strong-willed woman in a time when that is not what is allowed or required of women. She's kind of ostracized as a result and seen as kind of a bit of a witch, which surprisingly, well, not at all surprisingly, runs in her family. She's caught the eye of the King of Winter, who is just kind of dark and brooding and deadly. Throughout the series, she grows into herself and she begins to fight for her freedom. At the beginning of it, she's pretty demure and young and doesn't really know what she wants or who she is. She just knows that the kind of typical mold of femininity in Russia at the time is not fitting her. And so she rebels. And she kind of gets caught up in this kind of magical adventure that's pretty amazing. By this point in the series, she's come to really know that magic is real, that she's seeing and interacting with these kind of folklore creatures, and that she has the potential for power, but she's also been ostracized. There are a couple of events in the first couple of books that have really set her apart and brought attention to the fact that she is not normal. So the third book picks up basically at the very start of what's about to be a riot. This is the point where if you are not looking for spoilers, you should stop, because I'm going to do all of the spoilers. If you want to know more about the previous books, I will link my other reviews down below. But needless to say, I have loved this series and I highly encourage you to read it. I think the ending is ideal for the world that Arden has built. It comes highly recommended. For the spoilery bits. So Vasya's burned down Moscow. Oh my god, it's been an uproar. Everyone knows that she was pretending to be a boy so that she could like run off with the army to do stuff and like fight in battles or whatever. Her brother is like PO'd at her. The prince is like basically ready to just shove her into the woods and write her off as a witch. And that's when Father Constantine brings down the mob. We start off this story, the very first chapter, with the mob falling down on Olya's like home, right where Vasya is staying. And from there, Vasya has to basically embrace her magic in order to escape and also defend the people that she loves. And so she's being pulled between the magical world that sees her as kind of a potential savior, somebody who can bring back magic into the regular world, and her loyalty to her family, which, while is not directly in opposition to that, means that she can't just, you know, flat out say, no, I'm going to destroy all of the Christians, because that would mean destroying her family and the structures of her people. So she's really in this kind of bind, and I like how Arden does it because it's really quite nuanced. The story itself is really well paced, and I think my favorite part is the way that Arden has integrated the magic into the world. So there are issues going on, of course, with Moscow, with external threats to the state, threats to her family, and of course her family's feelings of betrayal and distrust, because her family does not forgive her for being a witch, really, and her family definitely doesn't forgive her for things like burning down Moscow and maybe killing their granddaughter. But it is, of course, more complicated than that. And so Vasya, you know, escapes into the magic. she embraces it, and that brings her into this dark forest of midnight where she, of course, finds you-know-who. Everybody's favorite Russian witch, Baba Yaga. I mean, it's not technically Baba Yaga, right? Like, it's not like she's not riding around in her pestle and, like, there isn't, like, a house with chicken legs. But there's definitely a degraded house and a super powerful witch that's it. It's Baba Yaga. It's Baba Yaga, and Baba Yaga, spoiler, is her grandmother. One of the things that is so prominent in this story, one of the themes, is that, like, they're going to make Vasya say whether she's doing stuff for her people or for herself, right? Like, are you doing this because it is in the good and best interest of the people you love, or are you doing this because you can't stand to be the one who's let something bad happen? And I think that is a really important kind of question to have her engage with, especially because so much of this story has been about embracing herself. And so turning that around and saying, yes, that's good and great, but is this the wise decision? Or is this a decision you're making because of pride, because you have fought so hard to embrace yourself? You know, who is your loyalty to? Is it to these people who only you can help? Or is it to your family? Or is it to, you know, the entirety of Russia and the Russians against the Tatars? That is really, I think, a compelling storyline. And I think that Arden does a really fantastic job balancing it. I think one of the additionally interesting things to watch is to kind of see the way that the internal folklore side is playing out, because even within that, Vasya is kind of dealing with this battle, which is that she loves the Winter King. Yes, we all knew that. It's laid bare in the first 2 books, really. But there are parts where she will never be able to take his side fully, right? Like, she can never be somebody who can save the Chyerti, the folklore creatures, if she only ever sees it as a he's right and the bear is wrong. And that is a really lovely nuance that I think helps make her flesh out that relationship a lot more clearly. On top of that, of course, it has the beautiful, beautiful prose. It has, you know, some really lovely character building. I think one of the things that I like most is having to watch Vasya's sister Olya and her brother Alexander deal with the fact that their sister's a known witch. And that's some crazy town stuff. But watching them say, look, I can put aside some of this stuff. Like, I'm Christian. I believe in certain things. I'm not so sure this guy you love isn't a devil. But I can put some of that aside with the acknowledgement that you are so very clearly different than me. So how can I support you, and where do those limits lie? That is a really interesting storyline as well. And I think helps build those side characters, despite the fact that we don't actually get a lot of their point of view. The story is primarily, of course, Vasya's point of view. It's in third person, but it follows her. The story is broken up into, I think, 5 parts. I mean, let's not lie. I've been a huge fan of this series since the beginning. I really loved the beauty of the first one. It's lyricism, it's poetry. And the third one doesn't lose any of that. It mostly just ties it all together in this really beautiful ending. There are some moments that are slow. There are some moments that probably could have been cut if we were keeping an eye on, like, timeliness of the story, or like the tightness, right? The turnaround of certain events. But none of that, I think, detracts from the really lovely parts of the story or from the compelling nature that is going on within it. It just means that sometimes we have like 3 extra battle scenes, but whoever says no to an extra battle scene, especially when it has magic? No one. And let's face it, if the world can forgive Patrick Rothfuss for 300 pages of fairy sex, I can forgive a few extra, like, random scenes that don't really help her or hurt the story at all. So, I've said it. So there you have it. I have loved this whole series. I really, really hope that you pick it up. If you have, you should let me know what you think about it. It can be a little slow, so I understand it's probably not for everyone. I love the fairy tale feel of it, and I just can't get over the lyricism. I really can't. And I would love to get your actual thoughts on this. And especially with Arden up for her last year of eligibility for the John W. Campbell Award, please, please check this out. I promise you, you will not regret it. You guys know the drill. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. If you would like to help support me in other ways, you can of course go on over to my Patreon page and you can check out some of the tiers there. They let you do cool things like see my videos early and help me pick my TBR for the month. Other ways you can do that are totally and completely free, go ahead and follow me on Instagram and Twitter, like this channel and subscribe, share it with your friends, which also really, really helps. I hope you guys have a fantastic reading week. See you later. Bye.